I do, because I'm about to introduce the amazing Nichole McGill-Higgins. Before I do that, I am going to technology again. Let's try it. Come on. So if you want to grab your phones again and go back to menti.com, our next questions. Do you think coaching plays a part in building an inclusive workforce? See if I'm looking at this table at the front to show me if it's working or not. Oh, hang on. Oh, we've got a few coming in. We've got some answers coming in, so that suggests there's a few people in the room that's definitely working for. So keep pressing refresh and it'll work eventually. I've just noticed that in the bottom corner it tells me how many people have answered, so now I can know how many people have actually answered. It's only took me to halfway through the morning to recognise that. Okay, right, fantastic stuff. So overwhelmingly at the moment, all of us in the room believe, or certainly vast majority of us, that coaching plays a part in building an inclusive workforce. Right, so next question, because we have a second one for you to think about for Nichole's talk. What does inclusivity mean to your organisation? So again, this is a free type, so it will appear on a word cloud. So can we get a collection of words like we had before? Here we go. We've got a new word up here, belonging. I'll take that. Belonging, okay, everybody bringing their authentic selves, fantastic stuff. Freedom to be yourself. A voice, together. Already these words that you're thinking about in terms of inclusivity are bringing that inspiration that you all wanted from today. Okay, again, the numbers going up. We've got vast majority of people answered. Now, this is one of the questions that we're going to ask you before we get to talks throughout the day that I'd really encourage you to think about, because these are the words that we use to describe what it means to our organisation. Of course, the great thing about inclusivity, like Nichole's going to demonstrate to us, is we're all responsible for it. And more importantly, we all have the opportunity to play a part in it. Right, lovely stuff. We have one more, he says. No, that was the final one. There was only two. False alarm. Right, thank you again for your contributions to that. So, really, Nichole, the question that we should have put on the screen to everybody is, are you ready to dance? I am so excited to introduce our next speaker for you. It is the amazing Nichole McGill-Higgins. Nichole's going to talk to you about how to engage with the wider business to build that inclusive organisation. So one of the reasons I'm really, really excited to introduce Nichole is because last week she nearly caused me to crash my car whilst driving on the M6 because I listened to your wonderful podcast with Joe. And what that meant is that while I'm listening to Nichole driving on a motorway, I'm going, yeah, you're right. Why doesn't everybody else think like this? And I'm screaming at my steering wheel, listening to this amazing, inspirational person talking about her own personal story and cutting through the bullshit and saying it as it is to help us to understand what inclusivity can really mean, not just to organisations, to all of us as well. Some of the things that she talked about on there were about if you treat people like you want them to change, they will make the change. What a brilliant way of looking at that. Have the conversation. It's a brilliant thing I took from listening to Nichole last week is it's about having the conversation. Too often around inclusivity, we don't include the right people in the conversation. If it doesn't have to happen to you for it to matter to you. And the one that really, really got me, to be honest with Nichole, I want to say thank you because this helped me massively last week when you talked about your passion has to be stronger than your fear. So it was perfect timing for me because that gave me the confidence to get back on stage. So thank you, Nichole. Now, fast forward to last night, and we're all having tea at 5:30 in the Italian restaurant around the corner. most of us were northerners, so we're all sat at the table trying to order beer and worrying about pizza and everything else. And I look down the table at Nichole and she's just ice cool sat there. Just taking it all in. Just being really super cool. And that's exactly what you're going to get from it in your talk right now. Now, when I saw Nichole this morning, the first thing she said to me is, I don't trust you, and I'm scared of you. I'd say that as a compliment, to be fair, Nichole, because it means you are being your authentic self. So I would like to introduce to you, entering the floor, my dancing partner, Nichole McGill-Higgins.
I'll be honest, I don't really have much to say. He's just said my whole speech. He's just finished it all off for me. So hi, everyone. So I'm Nichole. I'm going to be speaking about how to make your organisations inclusive and what does that actually mean. So we're looking at engage. How do you engage with your organisation? And also, this is about yourselves, because I think we do hide behind the word organisation. So we're looking at the what, the why, and the how. So bring that excitement. Get excited about this. Why are we not? Get excited about being inclusive. It means different voices, different people. It's magic, right? So drum up the excitement instead of it being a really dark place, which I'll show you in a second. Ensure that the coaching and the feedback become a part of everyday life. Like Tim just said, the first thing I said to him was, I don't trust you. And you can all see why. Feedback doesn't have to be a dark and dingy place. And I think Tim's actually going to be talking about that later on today. Bring that into the organisation. I hate feedback. I used to be petrified of it because you don't want to be criticised, right? But I think there's constructive criticism. We've probably all heard that before, yeah? What's the how? And this is what I like. So we had Eloise talking about strategies. What's your communication strategy? That is being inclusive. Be transparent. Cascade that information through the organisation. Why are you talking about being inclusive? What's your why? What's your how, yeah? And also look at being that change agent. We want things to be different. It can't remain the same. Down, right? So, when we talk, how many of you in here are actually working on your inclusion strategy or D&I? Yeah? So you know the dark place. You know the dark side. Inclusion, when we talk about it, can feel like this picture over here. It's quite a lonely space. You're trying to make change. Discrimination, hate, all of that is learnt behaviour, not work behaviour. Most of our jobs, we do our jobs, we go home. This is something that's systemic beliefs. It's generational beliefs, which is coming into the workplace. There's no way you can possibly decode everyone that walks through your doors. However, you can have a zero-tolerance strategy and policies. Now, I do believe that your policies, your processes, your decision-making has to be in place. But what about the humanity? We're talking about humanizing and having that dialogue and conversation. If we have those conversations, would it get to probably complaints? Maybe not, because it's simple misunderstandings. And then it's that magical place where you're shining the light. It's like that little I do look like fairies and stuff like that. So look at inclusion as that magical space. This can be really interesting. I'm hearing different things. I read an article in Forbes, and it was around when you recruit a band, do you just get everybody who plays a guitar? Do you get everybody who does the drums? No, you don't, because then you wouldn't hear the beauty of the music, right? And it's the same thing with inclusion and people. You want everybody's voice in the room. So let's not see it as this dark space. Let's see it as a magical space that we can make change together, yeah? What I want you all to do is remove your corporate masks. I know you're here under a banner, but I want to know who are the Lisas, who are the Sallys. I'm just picking out names. I don't know if there's any Lisas or Sallys in the room. But I want you to be your authentic self. What does that mean? We keep hearing bring your whole self to work. Suppose my whole self is 5%. That's enough. Suppose my whole self is 90%. That's also enough. What you're saying to your employees is you have a choice. And we all like options, right? We don't like labels. So remove the corporate mask today. Really speak to each other. If there's anybody in the room who's done anything around inclusion that you feel has worked, talk about it. If there's anyone in the room who's having challenges, talk about it. I know there's quite a few organisations that have said, we need to be inclusive, we need to be inclusive, especially after the murder of George Floyd. That really made D&I huge on the agenda, right? So what are you doing about it? The other thing is you have lots of white colleagues who are now working on race, and they don't feel comfortable doing that because they have their own drawbacks. Like, how can I possibly be talking about race? How could I possibly be talking about LGBTQ? We've also got to remember that when it comes to inclusion, it's not just your top liners, as I call them, the celebrity four, which is race, gender, LGBTQ, and disabilities. We need to think about the menopause. We need to think about the sandwich generation. We need to think about the people who need time off because their parents aren't well, but the new mum who comes back does get the flexible working, because we're putting too many labels. So we need to remove those labels and find the human, because once we do that, then the dialogue can happen. And of course, I do understand that there are marginalized groups. I talk a lot about anti-racism, and I choose to do that because I know what it is to have the Black experience. However, I don't believe that you should just keep all the voices out of the room. I need to know what everybody's experience is so we can have that dialogue. So I'm not just the Black chick in the room, I'm Nichole, yeah? So remove the mask today. Anyone who's got any questions, please come and ask me afterwards. I'll be here for the day. We've got Q&As anyway, so write the questions down and use your workbooks. So, look at the plug there. So, one of the things that I do talk about a lot is psychological safety. When I first saw this, I was like, this is what we're talking about. What does that mean? So we talk about safe spaces, but to me, that's a little bit ambiguous. What does safe space actually mean? A safe space for me is wrapped up with my hot water bottle watching Aladdin. I love Disney. A safe space for one of my friends is jumping out of a plane. Hell to the no. I'm not doing that. That's not safe. What I do talk about is brave spaces. And to be brave, you have to be vulnerable. And to be vulnerable means you have to push through the discomfort. And you've probably heard you have to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. And if you say you're doing inclusion, if you say that you're making a change, you have to have those conversations. And that's even before the policies. If you don't even understand why your organization wants to be inclusive, and you're not even speaking to people in your organization, how are you going to create a policy for people if you don't even know how your organization feels? And this is why lived experiences is so underrated. We all have them. So I'm not saying just speak to your 9 protected characteristics or those people. What I'm talking about is having maybe an equity forum, so everybody's voice is in the room. But I will get onto that. So when you look at psychological safety and think about your organization, is it the blame culture, which is psychological danger, or is it a place where the magic happens? I can give feedback, I can make a mistake and say, do you know what, I actually woke up really late this morning, I forgot to send that email, as opposed to, well, John didn't tell me it had to go at 10 o'clock. Do you see what I mean? There's a difference. And when we talk about psychological safety, I always couple it with cultural fit and cultural add. So this is language, and it's something that Eloise spoke about. Language is so important in this space. So I could do an interview and I could say, do you know what, Sandra, you could really fit in this organization. Now I'm thinking, you've got a great personality, you're fit. Sandra could be thinking, do I have to conform? What do you mean by fit? There's something a bit ambiguous and something that's putting me in a box, as opposed to saying, you really add to this culture. I can see how you're going to add to this team and this organization. Language is key. It's really important you look at your onboarding. We always go to recruitment, but we also have to look at progression. Yeah, we always have to look at retention. And you also have to look at your exit interviews. I find that exit interviews are very soft. Be honest, ask the questions. My last organization, when I saw the questions, I was literally like, no, this is not what I need to talk about. This is too fluffy for me. You want to know why people are leaving and why you're not retaining. So when we look at psychological safety, you want to have an organization where people feel free to be innovative, learn from failures and say, okay, so that didn't work. This is why marketing is a really good industry. I know we're not marketeers here, but I'm just saying. Because, with marketing, it says no publicity is bad publicity. And that's because you can learn from, if something goes out and you don't get a big response, you now know that wasn't the right language. Treat your people in your organization like that. If you have failures, that's fine. That's how you pick up and say, okay, that didn't work. However, that same failure could work in 2 years' time. It just might not be, it's not ready. But you want people to celebrate that. They say that if leaders don't allow people to speak, they just have a voiceless room. And you don't want that. You want people to be able to speak and not be penalized for that. So we look at teams that trust each other. Can you trust your teammates? Experiment without judgment. It's good to experiment, right? That's what we do, especially when we're cooking. I mean, we just throw everything in there like, oh, too much garlic, didn't like that. But we do that. Why do we bridge everything differently? Why do we have these labels of you have to behave in this way, you've got to behave in that way? It's a human experience, right? So voice opinions without being shamed. I mean, when I was at school, I'd never put my hands up. And then when I got to uni, still wouldn't do that. Then I got into meetings and started to have a voice. And then you realize that half the room was like, yeah, that's true, I don't know what they're talking about. My classic was, I'm so confused. Everybody just knew that Nichole was gonna say, I'm so confused. What does this mean? Oh, that is me. And then people would explain it. So, fail without being labeled a failure. And research shows that psychological safety is a key factor when it comes to performance. And that's what we're striving for. Happy people within the organization. Happy employees mean happy customers, happy clients, yeah? So there's a case study that Google did. So they wanted to know, we've got really high-performing teams. Why are they outperforming some of the others? So they did a research for 2 years, which anyone who does projects knows is a very long time. And they interviewed 180 teams to find out who are our high performers, why. Psychological safety came up every single time. And when you think about it, if you were able to be yourself and say and challenge, especially in the inclusion space, it's very difficult because you will probably have to say to your senior leaders, I think that was a bit racist, or I think that was a little bit sexist. How do you do that? You've now been given this role. How do you do that? Because the defensiveness comes up and we know this. And we have to learn to push through that it's not a matter of criticism, it's a matter for the greater good. So I am so into belonging. When I saw the belongings coming up, I was sitting there clapping, saying, oh, this is great. We're on the same page. Belonging, equity, and equality. We have to look at belonging because I feel that diversity and inclusion, I've seen EDI, IDE, IED, B's now being put onto the, what does this all mean? The thing is that you have to have the voices in the room. People have to feel like they belong. And if we could all think for a second, has there been a time when you haven't felt like you belonged? Could have been at school, could have been at college, could have been in your first job, could have been yesterday. How does that feel, not to belong? And in organizations, you want people to have the psychological safety and the cultural add to feel like they belong. And I'm just gonna play a quick video. Some of you may have seen this. I should get royalties, honestly. I'm just gonna play a quick video. Justine, I'm gonna see. And there's a very good reason why I'm playing this. Hold on. Is it playing? Hold on. Oh, it's buffing. And I'll stop it there, but I'm gonna read why I'm playing this video. And it was a post that I saw a few months back. It's had over 1 million views. When discussing diversity, equity, and inclusion, we often use the analogy of being invited to dancing, and getting to a place of choosing the music. Here's an example of my 15-month-old daughter feeling like she belongs and owning the dance streets of New York City. Imagine how productive our workplaces would be if we felt like we belonged. Now that little girl, she rocked it. She owned the streets. She did not care. And imagine if you could create an organization that people feel like they belong. So for me, yes, I understand diversity and inclusion. I understand that what did I do? Okay. I'm trying to I haven't been in heels for a while, so. And I've got all the stilettos as well, right? So for me, it's around belonging. It really, really is. That's the top and bottom line. We do talk about the protected characteristics, but it can be divisive. You can be excluding voices. That's exactly what we don't want to be doing. So are you fostering a culture of belonging? And this is another quote that one of my friends told me about, which I absolutely love. So you'll normally see the equity versus equality. I don't believe that. They have to work hand in hand because they then equal belonging. So equity is giving everyone a pair of shoes. Sorry, equality is giving everyone a pair of shoes. Equity is making sure it fits. So when you're in your organization having these conversations, who are you speaking to? Are you actually finding out, are you saying that you care? If you listen to the podcast, Joe's made a fantastic example that because she didn't have children, she always had the last one-to-ones. But she wanted to go to the gym, or she just wanted to go home and watch a movie, or what have you. So it's about being equitable. And I think if organizations look at inclusion as being equitable and equal, then the belonging will happen. And the thing is, when people trust, you'll be amazed how much they give. There's times where you think, I'm leaving at 5 o'clock, I hate my manager, I hate this workplace, I'm going home. But when you feel like there's a common goal and you've got that psychological safety and you add, you will wait till 6 o'clock with the rest of your team and work. So what organizations are you trying to build and foster? What are the challenges? And if you could probably write these in your workbooks, what's the challenges you feel that you're facing with inclusion? Is your inclusion messaging even clear? Does your organization know? Are they ready for it? Because when George Floyd was murdered, and now all of a sudden the internal comms team has to talk about race, and the external team has to talk about race, lots of organizations have not prepared us for this. And you then find that they're now recruiting D&I people, and everything is down to them. And that's not fair either, because they're human too. So how am I for time? Great, okay. So how coaching can create a diverse and inclusive workplace? I think everybody should be coached. It's really, really important. I've done mentoring and coaching, and I'm quite fortunate. My coach is even here today, and he's absolutely phenomenal. He was like, Nichole, I want to see you talk. I was like, why? We don't need to do this, we're talking now. So he's here, and he has been phenomenal in terms of those awakening moments. A coach isn't here to tell you what to do, but we're here to champion you. And if organizations can be that accountability partner and help you to understand what the barriers are, especially in inclusion, because you've got your own systemic beliefs, you've got your own values and your own beliefs that may not align with your family or your friends. I have people that will say to me, Nichole, I would call out racism, sexism, ageism, homophobicness at work, but I wouldn't do it within my family or my friends. I classically had a senior leader say to me, Nichole, I'd call it out here, but I go to football every Saturday and I would never say a word. So it's around who are your circles and were you stepping into that brave space? As we've spoken about brave spaces, showing vulnerabilities. And it doesn't have to be the job of the senior leader. It doesn't have to be the job of HR. Everyone can make a difference. And there's something I do like to say, which is, if everyone does a little, no one has to do a lot. And I'll tell you where that came from. It's a bit more, no, it's not that funny actually. My son, when he left home and got married and had my first grandson, he came home and he's like, Mummy, I now know why you wanted me and my brother to wash the dishes so much. I was like, really? Too late. But he was like, Mummy, if everyone does a little, no one has to do a lot. I was like, no shit, Sherlock. Like, what? like, hi. But in this space, honestly, if everyone steps into it, I've had epic conversations with people who have made changes because they're in positions to make that change. And I was the co-chair for the Race at Work group at the CIPD when I worked there. And I'm proud to say that I left a legacy, and not just for race, but for inclusion on a whole, because I was having those conversations with the people who were stakeholders. And they were able to make those changes because it's around changing hearts and minds. It's unfortunate that inclusion really is telling people to be decent human beings. That's basically what D&I is, or belonging for me. But I just don't like the idea of keeping voices out of that room. We all have experiences. So if you are speaking to somebody from an underrepresented group and you can't relate for whatever reason, push through the uncomfortableness. That's one thing I really want you to take away from today. Push through the uncomfortableness and get to know and have the dialogue. So if you look here, it's to increase, what coaching can help with is to increase diversity representation within leadership roles. We know that there's lots of boards that may not have women or people of color or people who are differently abled. That's what coaching can do, because what it does, it's those questions, it's those searching questions that coaching does. You walk out feeling like you're Mary Poppins, you're just flying around. It's like, oh my God, this is great. Initiatives that include coaching can prepare employees to succeed in their new positions. So the coaching that I've ended up doing is really coaching people in this space. Because senior leaders will say, Nichole, I'm a white male, I'm the CEO, I'm expected to know, and I don't. And that is a very scary place for anybody, because then you're going to get a lot of criticism. Oh, why, you say we're doing inclusion, but you don't even use the right terminologies. So coaching people in that space brings that energy, and they can then transfer that to all of you, or you can transfer that to your organization. Coaching is about partnering with our clients to inspire them to maximize their personal and professional potential. So that's what coaching does. It brings the best you, and it helps you to be their authentic self. As I said to all of you, I started speaking about race with a wider lens. I could have spoken about many others, but if you get the race side of things right, other people start to talk. So you'll have people talking about flexible working, or they'd like to work in their country for 3 months. Why not? We can do this. Hybrid working, right? When the corona happened, we made big changes in our organizations like that. Why is inclusion taking so long? There's no excuse. We can do it. I've seen organizations where the customer service team has never worked from home, but they made sure they worked from home in the pandemic because they were going to lose money, right? So it can be done. So coaches empower their clients to become experts in their own lives and their own experiences. And that's what we do as coaches. It's that empowerment. So be bold, be brave, and please be you. Thank you.